get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello, BYWG Podcast Tribe. This is Dr. Noah. We wanted to make you aware of our August Book of the Month and Product of the Month. All the links to the book and product of the month will be listed in the show notes in iTunes, in our weekly newsletters, and on our website at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com at the Listen Now tab. Our book of the month is The Seeds Plan, Prevent and Reverse Alzheimer's Disease by Dr. Jenny Ann Freeman. Dr. Freeman will be on the podcast in August and has been on before discussing the power of turmeric. You can find this interview at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com in the archives at the Listen Now tab. The product of the month is Alitura, our choice for all natural skincare products. Hint, without a doubt, the night cream is my favorite. You can listen to me interview the creator and owner of Alitura, Andy Nilo, in the archives on the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast as well. Enjoy the upcoming podcast. Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I am your co-host. Today I'm very excited to invite Darryl Edwards on the show. I've personally enjoyed Darryl's work for many, many years and excited to chat to him about his new book, Animal Moves. Darryl, I'm very thankful our mutual friend, Dr. Guillermo Ruiz, connected us.
Yes, I mean, it's just a pleasure to be on your podcast, and I always love talking about play and being playful. So yes, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So let me do your bio and then we'll get started. Darryl is a movement coach, natural lifestyle educator, nutritionist, and creator of the Primal Play Method. Darryl developed the Primal Play methodology to inspire others to make activity fun while getting healthier, fitter, and stronger in the process. Darryl is the owner of Fitness Explorer Training and the author of several books, including Paleo Fitness, Paleo from A to Z, and his most recent, Animal Moves. His work has been published in titles such as Men's Health, Women's Health, Elle Magazine, Men's Fitness, and featured on the BBC documentaries Eat to Live Forever and Doctor in the House. As the founder of the Primal Play methodology, he makes functional fitness activity fun, effective and engaging while getting individuals healthier, fitter, and stronger in the process. Darryl has presented at numerous venues including Harvard Medical School, University of the Arts London, Imperial College, Virgin Atlantic, Paleo FX, Ancestral Health Symposium, and hosting Primal Play sessions worldwide. Darryl runs programs all over the world where he teaches Primal Play as a way to become reacquainted with the enjoyment of movement and the superhero path. Well, you know, we have a lot of people on the podcast talking about food, supplementation, mindset, new books, but probably not enough about exercise and definitely not enough about play. So Darryl, how about we just start off with the first question I ask everybody. How did you become this play primal expert, paleo expert?
So yeah, well, interestingly, what I do now has pretty much nothing to do with what I did in my previous career, apart from I suppose it has a lot to do with that, but you wouldn't guess so based on what I do now. So I used to work within investment banking as a technologist. Very demanding, very lucrative work. It was a meritocracy. A handful of people could do the type of work that I was doing, and twofold, it meant, one, I was getting paid a lot of money, but secondly, there was significant demand on my time. So I was working on average 16 to 18 hours a day. I was on call 24/7. And it was just, when I think back now, it was pretty ridiculous how much work I had to do on a day-to-day basis. I was supporting systems within London, where I was based, but also in New York, also in Hong Kong, in Sydney. So running a follow the sun operation, as it was called. So wherever the sun was setting, I'd probably be making sure that things were working as they should, so the bank could be making lots of money. So one year I was having an annual health check and was told that I was suffering from pre-diabetes, I was anemic, I was suffering from hypertension, I had a really poor lipid profile, cholesterol profile. So I was told that I had a very high risk of cardiovascular disease, of heart disease or stroke at a relatively early age. And so I kind of recognized that, one, I was in a very stressful environment. Secondly, I was very sedentary, as you can imagine, sitting at a desk surrounded by computer screens. My diet was also very poor. If I was lucky, I might grab a sandwich at lunchtime to eat at the desk, because I didn't want to spend too much time away from the desk. So eating was a very rushed affair, and I wasn't really aware of what was beneficial for me from a food point of view. So I wasn't really making any healthy lifestyle choices, to be fair. And when I was given the ultimatum of, okay, Darryl, we can give you a cocktail of meds, some statins for your cholesterol, we can give you some beta blockers for your blood pressure, we can give you some metformin for your pre-diabetes, and although we can manage the symptoms, it's not going to be tackling the root cause, and you're likely to be on these meds for the rest of your life. So it was that moment I was like, I'm really petrified of taking, medication. What about the side effects? And, all the questions I asked, I was basically told not to worry. If there are side effects, we can give you other treatments. And when I asked about lifestyle, I was told, well, you've got a significant amount of family members, close family members, who also have some of these issues. So it's likely just to be, you're getting older and it's genetic. Not much you can do about it. The one eureka moment that I had was recalling an article that I read about physical activity and its benefits on hypertension, on high blood pressure. And so I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can get a handle on that. Let me become more physically active. I'm sure there's benefits with, heart health and cardiovascular health by being more active. So let me at least try that and see if there's anything that can be done. And within a short space of time, just by becoming more physically active, my blood glucose became normalized. My cholesterol profile improved. And my blood pressure came down, and that was within about 30 days. And within 90 days of me, changing my approach to physical activity and also thinking about what I should be doing in terms of food, improving my food, everything became normalized. So I didn't have to take any medication, and I recognized that, lifestyle changes were very, very powerful intervention and an antidote to some of the issues that I was facing back then. So fast forwarding on about 15 years now, since then, I quit banking several years ago. I cross-trained as a nutritional therapist. I became a personal trainer. I recognized that I was most passionate about movement and physical activity and wanted to delve more into the research around the benefits of physical activity and the underlying mechanisms as to why they can improve your health. And I also wanted to have a more holistic view at the other pillars of health that are important as well. So improving my sleep quality through sleep hygiene measures, through looking at improving, nutrient density from the foods that I'm taking on board, managing my stress, having healthier relationships, thinking about, exposure to toxins and the like. So physical activity became the gateway to improving my lifestyle. But then I considered that there were other things that were important too. So it's been a very interesting journey, and one that led to me creating the Primal Play Method, because I believe many people ways to enjoy movement, because we're not getting enough day to day for many of us. And when we look at the options available, they can be seen as being, punishing regimens, or we see exercise as a chore. So Primal Play is one way of getting people to reconsider their relationship with activity and making sure they can derive more pleasure from that.
Who was your initial mentor into the paleo world, and then who was your initial mentor into this Primal Play animal moves, or did you just come up with this on just your own research and just spending time coaching people?
Well, with paleo, so as I mentioned, physical activity was the gateway for me to improve my health. And when I started looking at improving my diet, I tried a few things actually. So one was calorie restriction. Because I was gaining weight, I had very high levels of visceral fat. So I thought a kind of a crash diet would be the best way of managing that. And although I did lean out by restricting my calories, it just wasn't sustainable. And I was looking quite gaunt, to be fair. So I probably wasn't looking, even though I was losing weight, it probably wasn't the healthiest way for me to have a sustainable improvement in body composition. Then I tried something called a zone diet. I'm not sure if you're aware of the zone diet.
Yep.
Yeah, so very popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was the kind of the diet, one of the diets of the day, reducing carbohydrate intake to about 40% of total carbs, and having a ratio of 40, 30, 30. So that diet was very important to maintain that ratio of proteins, fats, and carbs, which meant for myself, I became very neurotic. I was counting, the amount of almonds I would have in a meal. I could only have 9, not 10. And I was literally weighing and measuring everything that I was eating. So again, I felt that it was more successful than calorie restriction, but I was becoming very neurotic. I couldn't go to restaurants without having to analyze, the menu in great detail. And it was just very difficult to maintain in the long term. And then somebody suggested the Paleo Diet, the book by Lauren Cordain, and I was like, oh, I've got that book on my bookshelf. So I called it my shelf help book, because it had been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years, and I glanced at it but didn't pay too much attention to it. But I revisited the book, and I became interested with this argument, this inference that there is a diet that is appropriate for the human species. There was a diet that our ancestors was our predominant diet of our ancestors. And because of that, we've evolved to eat in a particular way. And if we deviate from that path, we're likely to succumb to chronic lifestyle disease. So that was something that kind of, piqued my interest in, okay, if I'm moving in a particular way, I need to be fueling myself adequately. And of course, I become what I eat. So that has to be important too. So that's how I came across the Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain. And I've been eating that way now for 14 plus years, 15 years now, and it's something that I've maintained pretty much the same template that I started with, avoiding processed foods, avoiding artificial foods, avoiding foods of agriculture predominantly. So no grains, no dairy. Pretty much my template that I follow even up to now, and I've had great success with that, and I've written books about the reasons why we should consider a paleo type diet. There is some science supporting that, and obviously, anecdotally, it's worked very well for myself and also for my clients too. So that's how I got into the paleo in terms of nutrition. But to be honest, that got me even more interested in thinking about evolutionary biology and thinking, we didn't evolve just based on what we ate. Right. We evolved based on the environment that we were in and our ability to navigate that environment, which included movement. How did we obtain the food that we prize and cherish? It was because of movement. So there was no way for us to obtain food items without movement, and often it was significant and brutal movement required to be successful for a hunt or to gather foods, which meant significant period of time in a day to collect food. So it was very arduous work, significant amount of outlay in order for you to obtain the calories you need to be able to get about your day and then have enough energy left over to be able to get more food. So that those thoughts and feelings about the importance of getting food and the importance of movement in terms of building shelter, in terms of what we do recreationally. Once we've got food, we want to enjoy ourselves. We dance. We play games. We burn calories, recreationally. Once we have our food sorted, once we satiated ourselves, we think about doing other things. We have fun. So movement is also significant part of ourselves. It's a significant part of our DNA. And that's what I became most passionate about. So initially I thought about food, maybe working as a nutritionist. Then I recognized that I was more passionate about movement, and that we had a bigger problem in some respects with a sedentary lifestyle in the 21st century. And so Primal Play came out of that, thinking about Paleo Fitness initially, which is what my first published book was called, Paleo Fitness, using the argument that, if there's a diet that's most appropriate for humans, there is also movement patterns that we should be engaging in too, which also promote good health. And using Primal Play was a way of taking those paleo primal movement patterns and wrapping it in play to make them more fun and more appetizing, as you will, and more accessible for people. So I found initially, kind of talking about Paleo Fitness, people often think about, you've got to look great with your top off, like you've got to be like a caveman or cavewoman, and that's not really what this is about. It's not trying to recreate, an ancestral lifestyle, or to mimic that. It's modeling the best of the past, the best of what humans had to do in order to get to where we are today, and ensuring that what we do takes into account the best that science tells us as to what of those ancestral patterns were beneficial to us, and applying that now in the present day. So that's a long-winded way of telling you how I got to where I am now. So Primal Play was my creation. Primal Play was born out of thinking about ancestral movement patterns, but also making it fun and engaging too.
All right, so then let's whittle this down. So how do you define the difference between play and exercise?
Okay, so play, let me start with exercise. So exercise is defined as structured, repetitive movements, usually, over and above what you would do, during your normal day. So it's an optional physical activity which takes you above your basal rate, i.e. your state at rest, and there's usually some objective at the end of it. So usually it's to burn calories, right? To burn more than what you would burn at rest. So that's what exercise is. And so exercise is a modern construct. It's something of the modern age which is used as a substitute for physical activity we would have got in the past. So if you were hunting and gathering all day, for example, that's what you did. If you're a hunter-gatherer, there's no time for exercise. You wouldn't exercise to get fit. You would do what you had to do as a hunter-gatherer to be fit, right? You wouldn't do let's do some exercise drills to become fitter so that we can go out and get food. You would just do what you had to do to get food. So exercise is something that we've created in the modern era to try, almost like a supplement, I would say.
Right.
It's a supplement for the lack of physical activity, because of physical inactivity, because of our sedentary lifestyles. We need to create exercise. Play, and especially active play, is far removed from that. So, play doesn't necessarily have anything to do with exercise. It just has to do with pursuing something which is really, really fun and engaging. And when you think about the argument of play, humans are not the only animals who play. All mammals play. Other creatures, other creatures play. Birds play. Reptiles play. It's something that animals do. And what's interesting is with the risk of play, there's an inherent risk in playing a game. You can get injured by playing a game. There are dangers that can occur through play. But even with that risk, all animals still decide to do so because their focus is enjoyment. So if you're enjoying yourself in the present, that kind of replaces anything else that matters. So you satisfy your needs for survival, and then you have opportunity to enjoy yourself through play. So active play is just one component of play. There are many others. Those looking at the aspects looking at imagination and visualization and object-based play when you're focusing on manipulation of objects. There's play when you're playing by yourself. There's play when you're involved in groups and group dynamics and improving social interaction and emotional learning that occurs when you're young. So there are so many aspects around play that are far superior than an exercise experience. So exercise tends to be just about physical movement that will lead to physical and mental health benefits. Play doesn't have to include physical activity. You can be sedentary and still be in a play state. But through primal play, I'm really looking at how we can blend a physical activity experience and use play theory, as I say, to make it more interesting, to make it more engaging. So for many people, and I must admit, I was one of them, who I wanted to have a great love affair with exercise. I passionately wanted to feel great about being physically active. But there were so many times that I would decide, you know what, I'm going to cancel my gym session. Do you know what? I'd rather sit on my couch and watch a box set. I'd rather do something else than exercise. And I think there's something in our DNA which tells us, do you know what? Like, resting feels pretty good, right? We don't know where our next meal is going to come from. So maybe you should be careful about recreationally burning calories. So there's something in us that makes us feel comfortable being sedentary. There is some sort of switch that occurs there. And so for some people who are very self-disciplined, exercise is a great way. They can motivate themselves, they can follow a program, they can do whatever they need to achieve a goal. Mere mortals, like the rest of the planet, don't often make that decision. So when you're forced to move because you have to survive, then of course you'll do it. But if it's optional, which in the 21st century it is for many, movement is not mandatory, right? You can get by, you can order food by the click of a mouse, you can interact with other individuals through technology, you can do your housework with mechanical devices, or pay somebody to do it for you. You pretty much can live a life in solitary confinement with technology and still live. You could still survive in that way. Obviously not optimal, you could argue, but it's possible. So movement has been relegated and it's been engineered out of our existence for many of us.
So where does your new book, Animal Moves, fit into? How does it expand your horizons from primal play? How does this fit into the person, to what you do every day?
So Animal Moves is just one part of one aspect of primal play. So the primal part of primal play is thinking about what movement patterns humans should be engaging in to make us healthful, to improve our well-being, to improve our function and capability, to reduce our risk of lifestyle disease. What should we be doing? And so animal movements are a way of getting us to re-engage with our inner child. So pretty much everyone, all children, if given the opportunity, will pretend to be other animals. They'll play games which involves moving in animal-like ways. They'll play chasing games. They'll pretend to be lions and tigers. They'll pretend to be So they tend to fly like birds. I mean, they'll pretty much get inspired by the rest of the animal kingdom in what they do with movement. And if we do that from an adult point of view, why would you do that as an adult? The argument for that is humans are actually very poor at being specialists of movement. So, for example, a cheetah can outsprint humans. Like 5 times the top speed. 4 times the top speed of Usain Bolt. Cheetah can achieve. An ant can lift up to 100 times its body weight. Fleas can jump significant distances. Dolphins can outswim us very easily. We don't compare well to other animals in terms of specialties. But where we do extremely well is our ability to adapt to lots of different movement patterns. So humans can crawl, can run, can sprint, can lift and carry, can push and pull, can jump and climb, and perform all these different movement patterns. Average, jack of all trades, you could argue, and a master of none. But our ability to be able to perform all these movement patterns allow us to excel, allow us to work really well within our environment, allow us to travel the world. So if we look at the animal kingdom as our model, we're able to move in ways that are more natural to us as human beings. So not many adults, for example, would crawl because they would see crawling as just something you would do as a toddler, and you leave that behind. But for a hunter, crawling is important because you might be tracking an animal. You may need to stay low to the ground. It's something that would be a functional movement pattern. Squatting is something that you would do because you wouldn't always be relying on a chair. So a squat, is something that happens in the developing world. That doesn't happen very often in the West. So there are movement patterns that we just engage in, or we don't engage in now, that we should do, that will lead to less likelihood of injury, that will lead us to improve our balance and coordination and our strength and our stamina and endurance. So that's why I created Primal Play, to give people a fun way of ensuring you are getting your kind of movement nutrition, so to speak.
I'm looking at your book right now, and there's 2 things I wanted to just go over. One was a term that I've never heard before that I'd like you to share with the audience, and that's pandiculation.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So pandiculation is it's basically how animals reset their central nervous system. So give you a practical example of, imagine a 5-year-old child who's just woken up, and what they'll do is they'll do a 1-second stretch, looking quite convoluted. I mean, it doesn't look very graceful, but they'll kind of stretch and yawn, and that's it. That's what they'll do to kind of invigorate themselves. And so all animals do this. Cats will do this. So we call it a cat stretch, when they kind of stretch their spine out and they're on their hind legs and forelegs, and they'll hold that position for half a second or so, and they'll may meow simultaneously. That's pandiculation. So stretching, again, talking about exercise earlier, stretching is not something that the rest of the animal kingdom does. You won't see a cat hold a stretch for 30 seconds because they want to become more flexible. It just doesn't happen. We do this because we believe to maintain flexibility, we have to be doing stretching drills. Whereas actually, pandiculation gives us all that we need to prepare ourselves for movement, for one. And second, the act of movement itself is what helps us to maintain mobility and flexibility. So I talk about that a little bit in the book, and I talk about the science behind as to why stretching actually isn't as beneficial as we believe. So the science doesn't support the fact that it reduces injury. The science doesn't support the fact that it reduces muscle soreness, for example. The science does support that there's a psychological benefit. We kind of feel good when we're stretching, but there isn't necessarily a physiological benefit, a physical benefit in doing so. So pandiculation is nature's way of allowing us to go from a very sedentary position, like lying down or sleeping all night, and invigorating ourselves to prepare ourselves for movement at the start of the day. And again, visualizing that image of the kid, kind of arms outreached, yawning. When we're adults, we do this, but we don't do it in as vigorous a fashion. We don't do it in a way that a kid would do it. And so I'm encouraging people to do that more often and suggesting why it's beneficial. So pandiculation is a term that not many people have come across, including myself, even though I spent several years in the fitness industry, never once heard that term being used. Stretching was always being used, but I no longer stretch. I now only pandiculate.
Yeah, I saw it. I loved it. Every morning I wake up, I let my dog out of the crate, and he comes out and he arches his back, kind of drags his hind legs, takes a big yawn, and I pet him while he's doing it, and everything is taut on him, and then he kind of like either he's ready for a walk or either walks to his bed and just curls up a little ball and goes back to sleep. And it's nice to be able to put a word to that motion. I always call it an upward facing dog, kind of like yoga, and that's kind of what he's doing. But it's
yeah, exactly. But I suppose the distinction really is the fact that they're not doing it. They're not holding that position. So in yoga, say, or in conventional fitness, when we're stretching, we're trying to maintain suppleness and flexibility. The goal is to hold it for almost as long as you can, and it's quite uncomfortable. You're trying to push past that point to become more flexible. Whereas with pandiculation, there's nothing painful about it. It isn't uncomfortable at any point, and it's a full body movement.
Yeah.
So pretty much from the head to your toe, and you said there's that tension and that kind of release, and it's a brief moment where that occurs. It may even end with a little with a dog, for example, kind of like a shake and wagging the tail, almost as if the dog is wet, for example, and trying to shake water themselves. It may end with that, and it's interesting how disconnected we are from our natural selves, that we just see this as something that other animals do. We see this as something that we left at childhood. It's something that's quite childish. And we don't recognize the importance of it.
Well, speaking of childish, another part in your book, you talk about tag, playing tag. And the funny thing is, and maybe it's in England where you are, but in the States, there's a movie coming out, I think next weekend, called Tag, where there's these group of friends that played tag throughout their whole entire life. And there's obviously a story around it, but that's part of your primal play too, and Animal Moves is playing tag, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a universal game. I'm actually writing a blog post currently on tag. Interestingly enough, and why it's important, and it's one of these universal games. You go anywhere in the world. I used to think, for example, soccer or football, as we say here, is a universal game. It's pretty much everywhere on the planet plays soccer, kicks a ball with their feet, right? But it's not universal. There are some places that don't play soccer, right? That don't have a ball to be able to play that game, who don't know the rules. But every single community, every tribe, every country will have a game, a chasing game, involving, kids playing together, different ages, different genders, and the rules are pretty simple. One person is it, and they will chase the rest of the flock until they catch someone, and then they'll continue. And there's laughter and there's fun, and there are so many benefits from playing that game, and ensuring that you make it interesting and create different rules. And you play cops and robbers was a variant that I played as a kid, and then you stop playing it. You say, oh no, I'm too old for tag now, and then you become I'm a teenager and I play sport now. That's what I do. I do other stuff. I exercise, and then you become an adult, and tag is a distant memory. And you go, oh, wasn't it great playing those games as a kid? But I've never played it now. Oh my goodness, I love playing tag, and I've created a version called Primal Play Tag, which I talk about in the book. Which is, you're playing much closer quarters. You only need one other person, so there's the two of you rather than a group. And it's amazing how it recreates what those memories you had, that kind of play memory, that play history you had as a kid. It all comes flooding back. You start laughing and smiling when you're interacting with someone. You can be competitive, but also cooperative as well. It isn't just about winning. It's about having fun. And it's something that adults could definitely learn from kids or from their childlike selves, is how much fun it is to just play, to have the only goal to have fun and to be in the moment and to enjoy the process. And so much of adulthood is about the goal and the objectives, and you can kind of miss out on life almost, because the only thing that matters is getting there, is the end point. Whereas there's all this stuff in between that, if it isn't fun, you can start resenting what it takes to get there. You can have an amazing job, and then after a while, you start resenting it because, the commute to work, because your people, the colleagues that work there, because you've been doing the same task over and over again, because you're not being promoted, you're not being recognized for what you do. There's all these reasons why you're hating, most minutes in your day. And so play is something that takes us outside of that. And you recognize that play isn't just about having fun, because sometimes play can be really serious. Sometimes you can play a game as a kid, and everything hinges on you being able to succeed with that game. But you're still within the moment. You're still mindful. You can pretend that you're jumping across a pit of vipers as a kid, right? And you might have a grimace on your face, and you might feign injury or you're being stung, and you might pretend that you need to be saved by another part of the crew who's playing this game with you. It's all very, very serious for you when you're playing these games as a kid. So there were so many lessons to learn, and for myself as an adult now, I recognize the difference and distinction between being childish and being childlike. And in being childlike, everything about that is beautiful. Everything about that is actually worthwhile embracing as an adult. You don't have to be childish. You don't have to be petulant. You can just rediscover, the innocence of the world around you, the excitement around being alive, the fact that there are more important things than what's going to be happening tomorrow or next week or when you retire. There's now is really important. And that's what kids really work that out. There's a moment in their life where days just last forever, and I wish this moment wouldn't end. And then they get bogged down with life. They get bogged down with testing and getting into the school team and all the other stuff that, as they become more responsible and are told they have to conform, so I want to regain some of that back. And for me, the benefits have been, I feel more youthful, I feel more engaged in the people around me. I feel more interested and excited about life itself, even with all of the adversity that comes with life. You can have a different approach to how you tackle, what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it started out as being just about physical, active play, but then you realize this play state isn't just about physical activity. It's about being human. It's about being more of ourselves.
Well said, Darryl. I only have two final questions. One, how can people go about finding more about? Obviously there's the book and your website, but is an entry point that you prefer people contact you through?
Yes, primalplay.com is probably the best way, because there's lots of examples of movements. I have a free ebook on the importance of play. So to satisfy those who aren't convinced by our discussion, I have an ebook that you can download, which has some of the research, some of the benefits as to why play is important, not just for kids, but for adults as well. I have some example games and activities on my website, and lots of research again. And if you want to interact with me on social media, you can contact me at Fitness Explorer on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and the like. And of course, if you want to do something a bit more formal, a bit more structured, I do have the book Animal Moves, but I also have some online programs too. So if you want video instruction, if you want more details as to how you can kind of move in this way, how you can improve function and have fun with movement, then that's giving you some ideas of what you can do to engage with me.
And my final question that I ask all my guests now is what is your routine, Darryl, from waking to sleep? Do you have a routine? Is it less routine than I think it might be? Or what do you do every day?
Well, firstly, I struggle to get out of bed. I mean, I'm working for myself, and I don't have anyone telling me what to do, which always sounds like, oh, that's so fantastic having no one telling you what to do. But it also means it can be more difficult to motivate yourself. So I tend to start out my day by doing something that I haven't done doing something really amazing in the first few seconds of my day. So I decide to get out of bed differently every single day. That's the first thing that I do. And that's like my morning coffee. That's like me kind of really waking myself up without having to have a morning coffee. And I find that by doing so, I tend to have a smile on my face, or question, what the heck am I doing, Darryl? When I do this. But it sets me up for the rest of the day. It ensures that I start out the day with movement, and it ensures that I want to have a different, hopefully have a different perspective on the day to come. In terms of the rest of the day, I try to ensure that I'm in a better position to make healthier decisions for myself. So around food, around the amount of movement that I'm going to be getting in the day, the interactions that I'm going to be getting, I try and set myself up and to make it easier for myself rather than make it difficult and daunting for myself. And then when it comes to the end of my day, it's been very difficult for me, but one of my difficulties has been switching off my phone and not browsing, when I'm in bed, and, having the phone right next to me that, I wake up briefly in the middle of the night. I'm like, let me see what's happened. So I switch off notifications, I switch off my phone, I put it into airplane mode, and I try to focus much more on having a ritual. So if there's anything where I probably have a ritual, it will be at the end of the day. I'm thinking much more about how can I improve my sleep by making sure I have some way of winding down and making sure I can rest and recover before the next day.
Well said. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Really love this interview. For all you listeners out there, all the links to the book and to Primal Play will be in the show notes. Thanks again, Darryl.
You're welcome, Noah. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and you're listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. Thank you, and as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome.
Get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling good.